In Tianjin, China, a survivor was pulled from among the rubble today, 3 days after massive explosions tore through the port city. At least 104 people are dead, more than 700 injured, and dozens more still missing. A state-run newspaper is reporting that the warehouse at the center of the explosion was storing 700 tons of sodium cyanide, a toxic chemical that forms a flammable gas when hit with water. Evacuations have been ordered for anyone within a 3-kilometer radius of the blast. Small explosions rocked parts of the industrial area Saturday as crews clean up the search for the missing. Now, Chinese authorities have evacuated that residents within 3 kilometers of that blast site. The evacuation comes over fears of this chemical contamination, in particular, this toxic chemical sodium cyanide that was found near the site. For more on this and his analysis, we're going to be joined now by David Leggett in Los Angeles. He's a consultant on hazardous chemical risk assessments. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with what is sodium cyanide and what are the risks?
Sodium cyanide is a very toxic chemical, and in the presence of water, it can make prussic acid. So we do need to correct what you just said about it forming acetylene. That was the other chemical that was present, also bad. But back to sodium cyanide. Sodium cyanide will form hydrogen cyanide. It is very toxic. For example, a quarter of a teaspoon is enough to kill somebody in about 2 minutes.
What other chemicals, you just mentioned it there, but can you tell us what else was found there that is such a concern?
That has been confirmed. There's 4 chemicals in total. We're talking about sodium cyanide. The second one that is hazardous is calcium carbide. And then there are 2 other chemicals, sodium nitrate and potassium nitrate. Those last 2 are very strong oxidizers, and they will help to fuel a fire and make it even more intense. So the calcium carbide is the one that's a big problem. When it gets wet, it will form acetylene, and acetylene is a very flammable and highly explosive gas.
So if they were trying to fight these fires with water, as they would have expected to do, would that have then caused this additional problem?
If indeed they were fighting with water, yes. Also, within the warehouse, the extent and the nature of the fire would be such that most likely water mains and water pipes inside the warehouse would have burst, and that would have also added water to the calcium carbide. So there's no shortage of water, unfortunately, to make acetylene.
Well, how normally should these chemicals have been stored? What's the safest way to keep these?
If we're in North America and we're looking at OSHA, for instance, and the regulations for the handling and storage of hazardous chemicals, we would be talking about completely non-flammable storage conditions. Very well sprinklered, protected. If it was calcium carbide, it would not be sprinkler protected because we don't want the water there. And very, very definitely sodium cyanide and potassium and calcium carbide would have been kept very, very well segregated, even with 700 tons of sodium cyanide, probably in a different building.
We know that people within a 3-kilometer radius have been evacuated. What do you know about the long-term effects of this type of an explosion?
Well, the long-term effects of the explosion, and thank you for making it that general, are very difficult to actually predict, simply because we really don't know what else was in the warehouse. There have been suspicions of a number of other chemicals which do very different things in fires. So we're talking about the long-term contamination of the area by not only things that we know about, but more likely by a large number of chemicals that we really don't know much about. This is going to take some time to figure out what the contaminants are.
We thank you for your analysis tonight. Thanks for joining us. David Leggett, a consultant on hazardous risk assessments. Thank you.